of Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018. And will everybody stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance? Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with the Director of Community Development, please call the roll.
Commissioner Rowland?
Here.
Commissioner Blackman?
Here.
Commissioner Talley?
Absent.
Chairman Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Crandall?
Here.
Commissioner Wood?
Yeah.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Okay, there are no special orders of business tonight. Item 5A, the minutes from the regular study session meeting of April 18th, 2018. Are there any corrections or comments?
Just a question to the other commissioners. Did we leave that where we were going to have another study session with Adam? Is that where it was left?
That's
I think
correct.
that needs to be related in the minutes.
Request an additional study session, okay?
So I will make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the study session of the City of San Clemente Planning Commission, April 18th, 2018, with one addition to the discussion that an additional study session would be scheduled.
Have a motion and a second, please. Have a second. Second by Commissioner Ruin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. With that, we need to review the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of April 18, 2018. And there is one correction on page 8, which is, get to it, the third paragraph down, Assistant City Attorney Robertson should be changed to Richardson. Unless you've had a name change without our knowledge.
You have a preference?
Well, it's your preference, you know. With that,
What's another guy?
and with that, there are no other question. I move that we approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of April 18th.
Second.
Second by Mr. Crandall, and a motion by Brown. All in favor? Aye. Passes 6-0. Oral and written communication. Members of the audience here tonight may address the commission on matters of public interest which pertain to the city and are not on our agenda. If you wish to speak, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and make a presentation. And please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that has anything they wish to talk about to the commission that is not on our agenda? With that, we'll go forward. There's nothing on our consent calendar tonight. Public hearing, we'll go into that. Item 8, public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony. To facilitate the meeting, all attendees of the public is asked to limit their individual presentation to 3 minutes. Following closure of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issue, and act upon the matter by motion. Item 8A tonight is discretionary sign permit 17-347 Flora Vista monument signs. Ms. Norwood, good to see you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good evening. Vanessa Norwood, project planner. This is a request to allow renovation of existing project identification signs and installation of 2 new monument identification signs for the Flora Vista community. The Flora Vista residential community was developed in the 1970s with 2 project identification wall signs located on both corners of the T intersection of Camino del Rio and Via Tulapan. That should have been up just now. That's the old sign. The applicant proposes renovated walls and to install new identification signs on the wall. The walls are within the landscape planter areas and abut the rear and side yards of adjacent homes. The renovated signs would continue to be uplit by ground-mounted lighting. In addition to the renovation of the existing wall signs, the applicant proposes 2 new monument identification signs within the median landscape planter areas of the street intersections of Calle Serra Montoso and Via Tulapan, and Calle Ceramentoso and Via Solana. These monument signs consist of stone veneer structures with black aluminum letters. Ground-mounted uplit lighting is also proposed. The proposed signs would create design consistency with the architectural character of the neighborhood and provide community identification. The applicant just recently asked that the font and letter size be increased for better visibility and lettering be stacked instead of on one line of text. This proposal is on the dais for your review.
And we do have it. Thank you very much.
Great. Staff supports this request as the size is compatible and complementary to the structure, and the signs are consistent with similar identification signs for other nearby residential communities. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve this request, subject to conditions of approval contained in the associated resolution. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is also
Does the
here.
Commission have any questions from staff? Commissioner Randall?
Yeah, on the amended drawings,
Yes.
we didn't get square footages on those to compare because they're different sizes than the original application. The original application for sign A1 and A2 was 72 inches wide and 8.5 inches high, and now we have 2 lines of text at 56 inches high, and I don't know if it's the same square footage or...
Sign A is 13.4 square feet. Sign B is 13.4 square feet as well. Is that correct? The applicant is here. Thank you.
Do we
Yes.
need to amend the resolution? How do we do that with this late submittal on this? Are
Well,
those,
there's no sign restrictions in the conditions, so it's just approved as submitted.
Does it meet the sign requirements for square footage? It does, obviously.
Yes,
it
does.
does meet it. I didn't know
Yeah.
if the resolution or something had to be amended to
I
make
don't
sure
think we
that
have square footage in there.
this new one is...
I'll defer to the Assistant City Attorney.
The reso is fine as it reads currently.
Great, okay, thank you. Any other question of staff at all? Does the applicant have any wish to comment on this?
No, I'm just here in case you had any questions. I'm just here in case you had any
Move the
questions.
microphone down closer.
I just am here in case you had any questions.
So you're the
Sign-
architect, you're the sign company?
No, I'm the sign company.
You're the sign company. You're not, you don't represent the HOA or the applicant at all, anyway. So,
Well, I am the applicant.
well, you are the applicant, the sign company did it, on behalf of the HOA?
On behalf of the HOA. Correct.
Okay. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Hope I see you're already work in progress there, so hope the bar fines weren't too hard. Any questions of the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
I'm just curious, the photographs that we're looking at, they're kind of dark, but it looks like planting areas in front of your signs.
There are.
And the signs are low. I'm just wondering if you're going to have a problem with plants ultimately hiding your signs. Unless you do something really low. It's just an observation. It's up to you, but...
Well, they have the HOA has an architectural plan that's being reviewed.
An occupation?
Oh, landscape, sorry, landscape. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm assuming after all this time and expense for a sign, they wouldn't do plantings that would block their own signs, I guess, would be kind of counterproductive to the amount of expense involved here, I suppose. Any other questions of the applicant here? Thank you.
Welcome.
We have, I'll now open the public hearing and have Miss Laura Riley that I'm sorry. So we'll close the public hearing unless there's someone else that wishes to talk on this. Thank you. Close the public hearing and enter into discussion, motion, questions amongst commissioners. Discussion.
Well, I'll just mention, because I know people are expecting me to say something about the uplighting. because I usually do, but I did cover it in design review. That downlighting would be preferred for light pollution, but as we don't yet have our lighting ordinance in place, they are certainly conforming. So, but that is the situation with that. My preference would have been downlighting, but it is what it is.
Okay? Any other questions? Not? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
Please entertain us. Yeah.
I move that we approve a resolution, PC 18-005, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving discretionary sign permit 17-347, Flora Vista Community entry signs, a request to allow project identification signs, 2 new entrance monument signs located at Calle Sarmentosa and Via Tulapan, Calle Sarmentosa and Via Solano, and 2 renovated entrance wall signs located on both corners of Camino del Rio and Via Tulapan.
Second.
Okay, motion by Smith, second by Wu. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Good luck. Thanks for coming in. And Mrs. Norwood will now go on to item 8B, which is tentative parcel map 2017-143, PLN 18-0089, site plan permit 18088, Cristobal Parcel Map.
Thank you once again. Good evening. Vanessa Norwood, project planner. This is a request to subdivide a 22,263 square foot parcel into 2 parcels. The project is located in the residential low zone and coastal overlay zoning district. The site is an irregularly shaped 22,263 square foot lot currently developed with a single-family residence built in 1981. The project has frontage on Paseo de Cristobal and La Rambla. The site is in a developed residential community surrounded by existing residences. The applicant proposes to create 2 lots consisting of 11,468 square feet and 10,795 square feet. The existing residence would be demolished in order to allow the subdivision because the structure would overlap both proposed parcels. Although no development is proposed as part of this request, the applicant has shown a sample footprint on plans submitted of residential structures on each parcel in order to demonstrate that both parcels can comply with residential development standards once the property is subdivided. Table 1 of the staff report references a 58-foot frontage on Lot 2 adjacent to La Rambla. However, the applicant has just recently informed staff that the frontage adjacent to La Rambla is actually 62 feet, not 58. So I wanted to make that correction. Therefore, the project does comply with all development standards. In addition, the city's development management team has also reviewed the project and determined that the subdivision meets city standards and requirements. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve this request, subject to conditions of approval contained in the associated resolution. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
You have questions of staff? Commissioner Crandall?
This requires also the site plan permit.
Yes.
And this is really probably for the attorney and you. So we approve the site plan permit, the tentative map, but we're creating a non-conforming use until that house, the existing house is removed.
Until
Because I don't see that as a condition of approval to remove the house.
Well, yeah, I guess it needs to be a condition of approval, I'm sorry. The parcel map, once it's recorded, then the house would need to, of course, go away. It needs to go.
Or does it need to go away before the parcel map where we create a, or before it's recorded? That would be for the attorney, I think.
Yeah, prior to recordation, the house would need to be demolished in order to not create that nonconformity, and we need to include that as a condition. That's correct.
Okay, so we'll work on a condition language. Very good question. Commissioner Wu.
Yeah, in your original report, you said the frontage on Cristobal is 58, and you just stated that it's actually 62. Have you confirmed that?
Yes, I have. The frontage is actually 62. It was in two different dimensions on the plan, and I saw the 58, I didn't see the 4. So it needed to be combined for the total of 62, which was made known to staff today, actually.
I live on Cristobal in the 100 block, and a lot of survey pins in that whole neighborhood. You got two sets on, two sets on every sidewalk, trying to define all the lots from 1928, so.
I got another question. On the subject side, there are a few very mature trees, pine trees, and a ficus tree. They're huge. I assume they're private trees, but does the city have any? We don't have any tree ordinance to try to preserve or provide any incentive to preserve those trees, do we?
No, we do not.
Tree ordinance is one of the, in the strategic implementation plan, the general plan to be accomplished, but I don't think we've gotten our hands around that yet. It's on the to-do list.
That's correct. It's on the to-do list.
The inventory's done, I believe, but not the ordinance. I posed a question to you earlier, and maybe I'll do that to the applicant, but it's actually really 3 lots. I mean, the other 323 there, where the pool is not a part of the subdivision. That's going to remain, I suppose, and it's not a part of the division, because it's all part of that lot now.
Yeah, I will
Where the
defer that.
pool, it goes all the way through to the ocean?
Yeah, I will defer that
To the applicant?
question to the applicant, yes.
Okay. Well, any other questions, staff? Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Good evening. I'm Greg Borchard. I am the consultant for the owner and the applicant. I am the applicant consulting for the owner. So as far as the 323, that is a separate legal lot that is completely separate from this project.
Okay, you notice the numbers are the same as far as on the plot line, so they are separate, is that correct?
That is correct. They are separate legal
And
lots.
not a part of this split?
No.
Or whatever, in any way? It's going to be retained ownership by someone else?
That's correct.
Okay. Any other comments of the representative, of the owner? Do you have anything, statement you'd like to offer, or any other statement you'd like to make?
If there's any other questions that has to do with the technical requirements, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you then, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
With that, we'll open the public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to talk about this matter? Recording secretary, madam, do we have any cards? No, sir. Okay, we'll close the public comment. And any other discussion?
Make a motion.
Well, we need to have language to enter into, Commissioner Crandall wisely brought up about a condition of approval, probably, now, Mal's got one, number 11, I suppose?
So based on Commissioner Crandall's recommendation, condition 11 would potentially read, prior to recordation of the final parcel map, owner shall remove the existing home currently on the property.
Okay. All right. Okay with that, thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion with that condition also added.
Okay.
Mr. Smith?
So I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution number PC 18-010, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, recommending the City Council approve tentative parcel map 2017-143, parentheses, PLN 18-089, parentheses, and site plan permit 18-088, Cristobal Parcel Map, a request to consider the subdivision of one lot into two lots located at 323 West Paseo de Cristobal,
With the addition of,
including the condition number 11,
as read
as
by...
written by our attorney.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Blackwell. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. One of the most beautiful lots in the town here. So, good luck. Wow. Clicking right along. With that, we'll now take up item 8C. .620 Avenida Pico and site plan permit 17-348, conditional use permit 17-349, architectural permit 17-350, discretionary sign permit 17-413, Pico Starbucks. And we also, for the record, do have an errata sheet on the dais that was presented tonight. And with that, Ms. Veronica, how you doing?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Veronica Moronis, and I'm here, Assistant Planner, to present item 8C this evening. The project location is 620 Avenida Pico, with a portion of the project proposed on 600 Avenida Pico. The portion proposed on 600 Avenida Pico is to be integrated into the 620 site through a lot line adjustment process. The project site is currently developed with a vacant restaurant building and parking lot. The adjacent properties are developed with a McDonald's restaurant and drive-through facility to the east, mobile gas station to the west, San Clemente High School sports fields to the south, and St. Andrew's by the Sea Church to the north. The site is designated a gateway location, and Avenida Pico is considered a major urban corridor per the general plan. The proposed project requests to demolish the existing Caro's building and build a 2,400 square foot commercial building with drive-through. The use requests 24-hour operation of the drive-through and restaurant use. The project requires a site plan permit, conditional use permit, architectural permit, and discretionary sign permit. A site plan permit is required for the construction of a new non-residential building. The proposed drive-through use and associated amplified sound for the speaker system require a conditional use permit. The project includes a traffic study, which was reviewed in addition to the site design, circulation, and vehicle stacking by City Traffic Engineer Tom Frank. The amplified sound speaker system and entrance to the drive-through lane are located in the rear of the property. The project proposes both interior and exterior seating for the use. Conditional use permit is required for outdoor dining facilities with more than 4 tables. The current configuration proposes 5 outdoor dining tables. The project proposes a Spanish colonial revival building designed by Henry Lenning and is consistent with city design guidelines. The project was reviewed by Design Review Subcommittee on 3 separate occasions. Since the previous Design Review Subcommittee meeting on March 28th, a couple of design changes have occurred. If you will look at the southern elevation in the lower left-hand corner, utility room doors were added for access on the southern facade, and an awning was added on the western facade, which is located in the top right of this presentation. The project proposes a total of 93 square feet of signage for the entire site, where 147 square feet could be permitted. The signage proposed includes 4 wall signs, 1 monument sign, 3 directional signs, 2 menu boards, and a clearance bar, 1 clearance bar. All sign bases are designed to be painted to match the proposed primary structure, and the wall sign and monument sign propose aluminum externally lit logos and bronze pin-mounted aluminum letters that are halo lit. The applicant has provided sample materials for both the logo and bronze letter signs. The site contains multiple easements. Please refer to attachment 4 in the staff report for a detailed view of those easements. Staff noted in the staff report that SDG&E had interest in taking an easement located in the northeast corner of the site. The applicant has informed staff that SDG&E will no longer require that easement.
You have it in writing, or they have it in writing?
I'll defer that to the applicant.
Okay, fine. The applicant will have his chance there momentarily.
The proposed project meets required findings as outlined in the draft resolution under attachment 1. The project supports multiple general plan policies, is consistent with city design guidelines, and meets development standards for the zone. The use is located over 700 feet from the nearest residential property and is in lower elevation than the nearest residential property by 50 to 110 feet. The traffic study provided states the level of service is unchanged with the project, and City Traffic Engineer Tom Frank is here this evening should you have questions. An errata sheet has been provided by staff to modify condition number 2 so that it reflects the 30-day timeline for consent to conditions. And with that, staff recommends Planning Commission approve this request subject to the conditions of approval contained in the associated resolution and with the errata modification. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for questions, and the applicant and their team are here for this evening.
Mr. Smith, I guess you have a question of staff?
Yes, I do, Veronica. Welcome, by the way. I know you're new.
Thank you.
I met her before in another meeting. This site has been looked at before, as is written up by Chick-fil-A and also In-N-Out Burger. And the permit for In-N-Out Burger was denied by City Council because of concerns related to potential vehicle stacking onto Avenida Pico. And so we wouldn't want to have that problem all over again. And I noticed that the documents in the plan shows that there's 16 cars in the drive-up lane to stack up there. How does that compare to In-N-Out Burger? What's the difference? Why is this going to work with City Council versus the In-N-Out? Is there more stacking, or how can you help us there?
So I would actually defer that question to Tom Frank, since he's the one who reviewed the traffic study and stacking analysis.
It's coming up right behind you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Tom Frank. I'm the Transportation Engineering Manager and Traffic Engineer. And yeah, the major differences between the application for the In-N-Out Burger and this application was, at the time, this was prior to the interchange being completed, and one of the major concerns or questions was the impact of weaving. And the weaving issue was, if you can envision, people heading on southbound I-5 and getting off the off-ramp and then turning left to go eastbound on Avenida Pico, and what that movement would be like to then get over into the far right-hand lane when there was dual right-hand turn lanes, and then turn into the proposed development. So that was at that time. Since the interchange improvements have been made, things have been greatly widened. The lane configurations are different, and we don't see any conflict with weaving for those different traffic movements. So that was one issue. The second issue, which you mentioned, which we're always concerned with popular drive-through applications, is the queuing. And so we had the applicant and their traffic study include some of the busiest Starbucks applicable developments, and one of the busiest in the country, or at least Southern California that I'm aware of, is the one down off of Leucadia Boulevard in the city of Encinitas. And so they did look at relative uses and typical queuing distance is for peak hours, and they included that in the traffic study. So I feel comfortable with the queuing which they're providing, and they did address the queuing, and everything else in the traffic study as well I feel very comfortable with.
So you don't think they're going to stack up in the street out like the In-N-Out over in Mission Viejo?
Well, of course, I can't predict everything in the future, but from what we've seen in other really popular Starbucks locations, the queuing will accommodate that use. But yeah, I can't predict exactly what's going to happen.
So you think we're okay on that?
from what we've seen in other applicable locations. That's correct.
Okay, so one little picky-uni point, I'd just like to have you maybe chime in on this. On the site plan, can you put the site plan up on the diagram? There you go. Tom, you know, the last couple of parking spots there way to the back of the site, they really need to have more backup space in order to get out of those spaces there. I know that from my own experience doing parking lots. So I'd just like to make the comment that I think before they build this, that they ought to take a look at trying to back out of those couple of parking spots they've got down there that's not going to work.
Are you?
Oh, I'll let the applicant address the turning radiuses.
You see my
for those,
issue,
but-
though?
No, I understand, I believe I understand your issue. It's for these two parking stalls?
No, the one way in the back, no,
Oh,
way
way in the
By the
back.
drive-in?
way in the back by the drive-through lanes.
Oh,
If you
okay.
park in,
Okay,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
park into those front ways, you're not going to get out.
I don't know, what's the
I think
dimensions?
that's existing, but I'll let the applicant address that issue. It's a good point, though.
Okay, thanks.
Just a minute.
Tom, hang on. This is going to be for both of you or either of you, I don't know which.
Still, we're not done with
Under
staff yet.
the resolution, there's no mention in the site plan approval or conditional use of the lot line adjustments. Should there be?
There was.
I didn't see it. I looked, I didn't see it.
There should be a condition of approval related to the lot line adjustment, which is an administrative process that would be handled prior to.
Okay. I may have just missed it, but
Has to be done prior to the permits being pulled. Certain, it's in there. I saw it.
eight, maybe? No, that's reciprocal.
Is it up in the front in the,
I looked on the front. Eight's the closest I can find, but that's just reciprocal access through the gas station.
should, I defer to the city attorney, should there be a condition that all the lot line adjustments?
Finding that we made that says the lot line adjustment's okay.
That's certainly reasonable to do.
We add a condition that the lot line adjustment be accomplished prior to any permits being pulled.
It can be lot line adjustment or it could be easement, either way.
I think what's proposed in the staff report, and it was a lot line adjustment, rather, is that correct?
There should be a lot line adjustment condition in these conditions of approval. I apologize for that
Okay.
being absent.
So we'll add a condition 65, I guess, when we get around to the end of it. Correct? Okay. Let's see, thank you, Bart, you're knocking it out of the ballpark.
It's actually condition of approval number 9. Prior to issuance of building permits, owner or designee shall submit and obtain.
Thank you.
What a save, great.
It's a lot of
Out of
conditions.
64 conditions here, I guess we found the right one. Commissioner Blackwell. Oh, Commissioner Rulon, you're...
Yeah, I had another question for Tom. I've always been concerned in that area about with the ingress and egress, especially with the increased business of Starbucks, along with the high school students going back and forth across the sidewalk there and the bikes and everything like that. I know you've looked at this, but can you put my mind at ease a little bit about that particular area and the safety?
There is space between the exit of the drive-through and the street, so they shouldn't be making, one movement from when they're exiting there. They'll be looking, and they'll be going at a slow pace, but they will have to yield to pedestrians crossing that sidewalk. So I'm not sure how much more I can put your mind at ease.
But you feel good about, you obviously don't have any issue with the fact that there's pedestrians going across there and there's,
Right, well,
safety is within reasonable margins.
I believe it is. We have an existing use out there with McDonald's and the existing condition with the high school students. McDonald's is very popular, always people in the drive-through and exiting, and I'm not aware of any conflicts that have occurred.
Any pedestrian accidents?
Pedestrian accidents. I haven't seen accident reports on them. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I'm not aware of it. So it's not frequent, that's for certain.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wu,
Tom, I got a question for you.
we like our traffic engineer.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We know this is going to be a Starbucks, so you have not only data from generic commercial activities for a drive-through restaurant, but also specific Starbucks, and you can benefit from observing some nearby popular Starbucks store. Hypothetically, if you're looking at a project that's not designed for a particular brand, do you have any basis to decide the number of car to be in the queue?
Yeah, it's a good question, and if we didn't know the specific use that was going in there, we would go by industry standards, ITE standards. But since we did know this particular use, we went with a more conservative approach and looked at the higher traffic volumes and looked at similar types of uses. So we're definitely going with a more conservative approach versus just the generic review.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's a very long drive path for 16 cars, and that doesn't count them stacking all the way through the parking lot
That's
like you do in
correct, right.
McDonald's next door either. Commissioner Blackwell, are you
Yes.
letting our traffic engineer off the hook? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for the time being, yeah.
Can I ask Tom a question?
Absolutely.
Because he's going to have to be back.
Oh,
out.
my
Answer as
You
many
just-
questions as you have.
I forgot,
gladly.
I'm
You just-
sorry, I forgot.
Second bite of the apple.
I don't know if there's another Starbucks further up Pico on the other side or not, but if there's not, one would think that the folks that live in Talaga are going to be tempted to get a Starbucks in the morning, and this is on the wrong side of the road as you're exiting. So what would be the scenario for people that go, I got to get a Starbucks now, and I've got to get over there, so what are they going to do? How are they going to circle back to get their Starbucks?
Right, there's actually a left-hand turn lane into the Caros currently, and that's going to remain for at
Yeah.
least the time being, yeah.
And is that going to be sufficient?
For the people traveling westbound, that would be likely their path. If they
For-
do miss that, then
For
what
an
they would...
onslaught of Talagan folks coming in for their Starbucks?
Well, there are other Starbucks in the area, so
One
there's
up in
some in the
Lapata,
Albertsons,
further
but
up, yeah.
actually, the planner could probably answer the question about that,
I'm
and the
just wondering
applicant
if
could
that
as
could
well.
also be a problem, and you don't think so?
We haven't seen the problem with, a significant problem with the left-hand turn movement at McDonald's, so we're not seeing that. And if there is a problem, we always reserve the right to mitigate or to change those left-hand turn medians.
That's in the report. as a matter of fact.
That's in the conditions, that's in here?
That's that's the city's right. I'm not sure whether it's in the conditions or not, but
I would believe that's going to be an issue.
I don't think there's any problem with McDonald's next door coming down there, and then the standard flow goes out, goes up by the high school, and then you have a immediate 180 turn signal light right there.
That's correct. And if they do miss, or they don't feel like they want to turn at that location, then they would go by the interchange. I'm actually saying this quite a bit with the current traffic flow, with the change in the interchange, but people are going by the interchange, and then they're making a left-hand turn at Pico Plaza, which is a protected left-hand turn movement.
Commissioner Blackwell, you've been waiting patiently.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Oh, you're welcome.
Question for
Yeah.
Veronica. Okay, so three-part question, if I may. One is landscape related, second is tower related, and the third is lighting. I'm sorry, signage related, and the third is lighting.
You have to
So-
reserve lighting for Commissioner Rulon. That's the
Okay.
rules of engagement.
I can always, if you don't touch on it, then I'll hit it later. That's fine. Okay. Okay. So has the landscape, city landscape architect Pat Murphy reviewed these landscape drawings?
So the landscape architect, Pat Murphy, has reviewed 3 iterations of these drawings.
Yeah.
This latest iteration that you're reviewing has slight changes since the last design review subcommittee meeting, which he had reviewed those. He has not reviewed this set, and the reason for that is the changes were insignificant enough with the removal of a few trees that it wasn't cycled back through.
Okay. Well, it appears that there were more than just a few trees removed. I mean, significant trees. We had some palms removed. We had a significant tree, a specimen tree at the frontage removed, and then we had 2 strawberry trees actually were removed, and those are significant features at maturity. Why were those trees removed?
I would defer that to the applicant.
Okay. Okay. And next question is, could you touch on the tower signage, and in fact, any signage that may be freeway facing or freeway visible?
Sure. So above are the definitions for freeway-oriented and freeway visible. The freeway-oriented signage would be any sign whose primary purpose is to identify the business from the freeway and to those motorists. The tower element is significantly below the allowed height for the zone, and the signage on the tower all face frontages and traffic that are not freeway-oriented. So from that, staff has interpreted that this would be considered freeway visible, which is permitted under the zoning ordinance with a discretionary sign permit. The applicant has provided some visual cues regarding where that tower would be, and I apologize that they're small. So the red essentially on this right picture would show where the potential plate line for that tower would be, and the signage is below that. So this is a southbound picture. Correct me if I'm... No, that's a southbound picture on the I-5 freeway. And then the left-hand side is taken from the Avenida Pico overpass, height-wise, and it shows where the potential building line would be, again, for the plate line, not the top of ridge for the tower element, but plate line.
Okay, was that shot southbound, was that taken from a Lamborghini? Or how, I mean, I drove by there today in my car, which is an SUV, and I had a much different perspective than that. That retaining wall is what, 3 feet tall?
I would defer that to the...
That median
Yeah.
barrier? Okay.
Depends on what lane you're in also.
True, that's true. Okay, and thank you. And so the monument sign would be facing the freeway, just the applicant's in the staff's finding is that it would not be visible, or would not be, it is not considered freeway facing, even though it's facing.
It's not considered freeway-oriented, as it's on the ground level and would be oriented as well towards Avenida Pico.
Okay. Okay. And then, can you touch on the medallion illumination and get a little into that and describe to us what that might look like at night?
As far as the illumination goes, it's to be externally proposed as external lit from the top of the tower portion pointing down. Staff does not have any nighttime simulations for that, but it would be made to comply with lighting standards, including dark skies policies.
Okay. Is that medallion recessed, or is it base mounted?
There's a recess in the structure itself, and the sign would be placed in there.
So there's LED lighting on the inside, correct?
At a point in this project, the applicant had proposed the idea of LED recessed lighting around that logo disc. That was ultimately changed to an external light that would shine down on the... It can be located in the sign package, more lighting details and information. Correct.
There's a photometric display in the very basic package here also.
Correct.
So some of the other lighting examples on the last page of this actual drawing.
So the west elevation in the lighting plan, page 4, shows the medallion, and it would be the same size and lighting design as the medallion that faces Pico, correct? So it would be
Correct.
just a carbon copy of what's on the opposite corner side?
Correct.
Okay.
And I have signed samples of that.
Okay. All righty, and then the, okay, I can save the rest for discussion. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Crandall?
Yeah, I'd like to actually have the applicant,
Are we done with staff then?
staff and the applicant, yeah, I guess I am.
Mr. Blackwell, you finished?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Rulin's lights
I think that-
buried there, okay, thank you. No more questions, to staff, then we'll ask the applicant to come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I would just like to introduce myself. I'm William Nascimento, and I'm the applicant. And I would like to introduce a couple of people I have with me, if you bear with me for a second. I have Karen and Rick Unfried. They're the owners of the land. They've actually been owners of their family. This land has been in their family since before the freeway was built. I also have my partner, Ryan Littridge. I have Paul Varskris, he's our landscape architect. I have Samantha Wynn and Trevor Briggs from Kimley Horn, the traffic engineering firm. And I have Stephanie Otto, Juliana Gifford, and Kimberly Roski from Starbucks. So Juliana is an expert in signage, Kimberly is an expert in design for Starbucks, and Stephanie is an expert in real estate for Starbucks. I really appreciate it. I just want to say a couple of really quick words. One is that we are a community focus group. We want to do something that will improve the community, that is something that will outlast us today, and that will be here for the long haul, that will create a sense of place, and that the community can be proud of it. Not only for our business, but for the folks that live in this community. We focus on design. We brought in Henry Lenny so that we would get, hopefully, a design that would celebrate the Spanish Village style and that would be consistent with the vision of the city and its policies and the folks that have come before us that have set those policies for the city. We have a commitment to do a great job for you. We appreciate it. I want to thank the folks at the DRSC, that Mr. Crandall, Mr. Rulin, you were there one time, Mr. Blackwell, and Mr. Yu. Thank you very much. I almost feel like I've worked, and Veronica and I worked together in the same office because we have worked so closely for the last 9 months to get this project to where it is. I think we've gotten it to a great place, and I think we have a great design, and I really appreciate your courtesy. I also want to thank all the other folks at the city, including Mr. Frank, who's here today, Amber, and Zach. They have been outstanding, by the way. They're very helpful and worked with us very well. We have a very challenging project in a very tight location and with a lot of easements and so forth. I just want to address a couple of items before I turn it over to you for questions. One is that In-N-Out and Chick-fil-A are normally 4,500 to 5,000 square feet. Their stores are about twice the size of our store. Their peaks are more concentrated at lunchtime. Ours are a little more distributed. On average, Starbucks stacking is 9 to 13 cars. We have used, as Mr. Frank has mentioned, one of the highest volumes Starbucks in this region, which is the one in San Diego that was alluded to on Lucadia Road down in Encinitas. The other item that you brought up regarding parking on the site plan, we actually have to retain a gate, so I'm sorry. At the end of, I apologize because there's parking shown lines that are actually overlain with existing and new. So on the end, where I'm pointing to, there is no parking because we have to provide an access for Caltrans to get it, to cross our right-of-way into their right-of-way for maintenance of their new bioswale. So that there will not be parking there. You had a couple other items regarding The tower lighting, we have struggled with how to light the tower without interfering with the architecture. We've considered gooseneck lights, we've considered LED within the recessed circular element of the tower, and those, Henry Lenny is very strict on the Spanish architecture, so he asked us not to use gooseneck lights, and the LED wasn't really working. So currently, we're actually creating a recess on the eave that will not be visible, that will shoot light down and wash light over the sign. So we have a new proposal that will actually reset, there'll be a recess at that level, exactly where the mouse is pointing, and there will be a light that will shine down towards the sign in that area. So we can work with staff and make sure that, you know, we meet whatever requirements you set forth for us. Regarding the landscaping, you know, the landscaping is a struggle, and there was a comment that came up about the easement. And it is true, Veronica reported correctly, that in my conversations with San Diego Gas and Electric, and we've been working with them for about 6 months, by the way, they told me that they don't need an easement, that they got a vault in my property, in Mr. Dianfried's property, and they're bringing power off of Pico to that vault, and then that vault is feeding McDonald's, Mobile, and feeding Carroll's and Caltrans. And there's an easement at McDonald's to get to their transformer. There's an easement on our property to get to Mobile transformer, to get to Caltrans transformer, but they said they don't need an easement. But I understood today as I walked in the room that Mr. Dianfried got a letter 2 days ago. They do need an easement. So I'm a little bit, I cannot report exactly what they want, so I'm going to have to go back to San Diego Gas and Electric and figure that out.
I was going to say, you get it in writing.
So I hope...
We've had that issue before with San Diego Gas and Electric.
I know Mr. Blackwell is concerned about the trees. We want to put as many trees as we can to make the site as amenable to the folks. One of the challenges we've had is we've had to go to a Spanish light, and the height of the light and the restrictions given lighting, we have a lot of light poles. And putting trees within 15 feet of those light poles is restricted because it impacts the ability to achieve the minimum lighting required by the city. So we have struggled with the locations of the trees, but again, we're committed to putting as many trees as we can. We've actually developed a new plan that you haven't seen, but we hope to work with staff to maximize the number of trees we can put and make the site really beautiful and welcoming for everyone that will enter the city and use the site. That's all I have. I really want to thank you, and I do want to ask for your support and your approval on this project, by the way. Thank you very much, and my team and I are ready to answer your questions.
We have lights on all over the place up here, so I'll start with the right, Mr. Rulin.
Thank you. I have 2 questions, at least so far.
Thank you.
I noticed on this plan, we've got new utility doors at that south side of the building. The main door there is so beautiful. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit. Are they just very strict utilitarian utility doors? Do they have anything else going for them, as all those cars lining up are going to be staring at those?
So unfortunately, there's a requirement by, we had a choice to put a cabinet outside or recess it into a closet. And we decided, we thought aesthetically it would be less impactful to have a closet and not have a stark metal cabinet, even if it's painted the same color outside the building. I have thought, after we propose what we've shown, that there is the trash enclosure on the left side. We have thought that it might be better to move the electric room, and San Diego Gas and Electric supports that, to the other side where it won't be as visible, because it will be sort of blocked by the trash enclosure, and the trash enclosure is aesthetically designed as well to match the architecture of the building. So we thought that if it's okay and I haven't had a chance to talk to Veronica about it, but the doors are utilitarian. They have to have venting. They have to allow for cooling. The choice is either have an electrical room with doors or go back to a cabinet outside, and it has to be on the building. We tried to put a cabinet up against the trash enclosure. They wouldn't allow us. It's too far. They wanted the cabinet in the building, so we've been struggling with that. But we thought, we have to live with it. There's a 3D rendering. I don't know if we showed the doors, but I don't think we have that.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there's anything to do, because that other door is so,
Yeah, it's a
just
beautiful
hearing
door.
Henry describe it, it's like, oh, man, that'll be
Yeah,
great, but.
I suffered through that one.
The other question is something very minor, but still kind of dear to my heart. The renderings show different things. I want to say windmill.
Weather vane.
Weather vane. Is the weather vane still in?
The weather vane was removed. I mean, we talked about putting something cute up there, but Henry thought it would there would be just a spire, a little spire with a design, but not anything rotating or mechanical on it.
Okay, too bad. I liked it. It was whimsical.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Smith, we'll go to the left here.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out that issue at the end of the parking lot. Is that going to be striped or covered, or how are you going to keep people from parking?
We'll probably cross-stripe it, diagonally stripe it in white, and put a sign up, no parking,
Okay.
Caltrans access only, something
Okay,
like that.
if we could go back to the site plan again.
Sure.
Hate to be picky about this, but I just want to make sure everything's working
No
okay.
problem.
I'm looking
Thank
at the
you.
little cars lining up, and the last car in line is lining up crooked in the middle of the parking lot there. You wouldn't be able to do if there were cars there. So my question is, you got your traffic people here and everything, are you going to be able to make that turn okay there with not encroaching on the parking? It just looks really tight.
So let me point out, again, one of the probably errors of the architecture on this is that it shows the existing striping of the parking. So there's no striping, and I'll point to it so that these stripes are existing and they're not going to be there. So it's a 24-foot wide driveway aisle that allows two-way traffic. And, so if you come and park on the last space here, you can back out and then leave. Also, the stacking study, Tom Frank is a great guy, but he made us go to the very, very highest volume Starbucks there are. So we're looking at, 16, 17 car stacking. We are not going to have this maybe, at peak for a few minutes. So the folks that park at those last parking spaces, they will be able to normally back out just like you do in any normal parking lot with a 24-foot drive aisle, and back up and drive out in a very comfortable manner.
Okay, so the parking that I think I'm seeing isn't really parking over there, but
It's existing parking, sorry,
the
because the
parking
survey is
requirement
underneath it.
For this project, though, is that you need to have
22 parking spaces.
You need to have 22?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, 19. And we have 22. I apologize.
Not including those, then, I take it.
No, those are not included. So if you count along here, and here,
You're good.
you meet the parking
All right,
requirements.
thanks.
Mr. Wu?
Yeah, I noticed that you mentioned that you changed the design for the signs inside the recess. Can we go back to the elevation?
Sure.
So now the LED is not installed within that recess, but is installed in the recess inside the eave. How deep is the recess?
Okay. The recess on the eave, I estimate, is probably about 8 inches. And the light is probably about 2.5, 3 inches. And it's outside of, and it shines down on the, we're actually having a lighting study to verify that that's going to work fine and give us the illumination.
I should clarify my question. How deep is the recess for that signage?
The recess for the signage right now is about 3 inches. So the sign will be recessed about 3 inches from the face of the stucco adjacent to
So
the
from that
sign.
angle, the recess is shallow enough, so it doesn't cast a shadow on the sign.
So you're pointing out that there might be slight shadow on top, right?
Uh-huh.
And having a lighting consultant analyze that. If we do get a shadow there, we might have to go back and put a strip LED right on top of the circle. The reason that the LED didn't work all the way around is because Henry actually wants the bottom of the circle to flatten down. You know, the recess is perpendicular, goes 90 degrees in around the top, but then at the bottom it flows like a teardrop down. So we couldn't run the LED all the way around. So that's why we're looking for alternative lighting schemes.
Looks like the oval shape lip is still there. It looks pretty tiny.
Right, this is actually a signage elevation, but Henry's elevations show that properly. This is kind of focused on just showing the signs, and it's not, this is more like not as aesthetically correct
So the architecture
elevation.
drawing, that is correct of that oval shape.
This is, Henry's elevation shows better what the shape of the teardrop will be.
Okay, good. Another question is, I know we just saw two photos from the freeway.
Okay.
Southbound and northbound. Do you have anything that's better? Because
I actually have video that I took on an SUV. I don't have a Lamborghini, I have a Honda Civic natural gas car, so all due respect to Mr. Blackwell, hopefully someday I'll have a Lamborghini, but not yet. But this photo unfortunately is taken from a Honda Civic, you know, natural gas car, which I drive. And this photo is actually taken from the shoulder and then off the passenger's window. And I've done a lot of work for Caltrans. It's risky to do these photos, but I did them. Mr. Blackwell is correct. I drove in my wife's SUV in the back seat and took video, and I do have video, but I don't know if I can hook it up. I could show you video both directions exactly what it looks like.
City policy is you have to set that in advance just because we've
Okay,
had...
no problem. So,
we've had things crash our system before.
Mr. Blackwell is correct. If you're in an SUV, you see a little bit higher. I don't know if you can see the blue. This blue is the top of the tower from a normal car. A Honda is a small car, I agree. But you're right, you would see a little bit more, maybe, you know, a third of the, you would see a couple of feet more if you're in an SUV. And this is from the HOV lane, by the way.
those dots are the
much
plate
better.
line.
The blue is the top of the tower, the roof of the tower.
Blue?
You can't see it, but you can barely see it here.
Oh, okay.
That's the top of the, actually, the existing top of the roof is 20 feet. The peak of the carrels is at 20 feet, and we're going to be at 22 feet. So we're going to be just 2 feet above with our tile roof. So the plate of from the peak of the tower to the plate is another 2 feet. So the top plate of the tower will match the top of the existing roof.
What are those red?
Red is dimensions to show what the, and this blue, which you can hardly see, is sort of the location of the towers. It's pretty hidden by trees. To be frank with you, you do see the building behind the trees, but as you drive by, it's tree, and you know, you see glimpses as you go by.
And those trees are street trees?
Those are trees primarily in the mobile site. Between the ramp and mobile, there are some, I believe, are maybe in Caltrans right away, and some are in the mobile property. And they're both properties are currently owned by the Unfrieds.
Caltrans just planted some palm trees along the side of the slope there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Crandall, you're okay. Okay, Commissioner Blackwell, you're back on battery here.
Yes. Okay, so can you reiterate why you're removing the trees?
Okay, so we have a couple of challenges. Along the property line between McDonald's and our site, along our site, there's a 12 kV line, underground line, from the existing trash enclosure all the way. So there's an underground vault that distributes power to all the properties in the
You can see the cabinets.
And then the power line goes along here.
Okay.
So you know, we've had a little bit of, you know, the SDG&E says you can plant something there, but they might cut the 12 kV line. And so we're going to work, possibly approach McDonald's, see if we can put trees in the property line, and, you know, see how friendly McDonald's is to us to put more trees, because we would like to see trees there as well. The other issue that we have is with Caltrans. So we removed this back portion of the property is in a Caltrans easement, but we just had a meeting with Caltrans this week, and they seem, they need to work on the channel, and they're going to ask the city for access off of Pico. So they seem a little bit more reasonable. We hope to get a few trees into the Caltrans right away. The blue, for sure, we cannot have any trees. That's the 27-inch water line that, you know, supplies water to half of the community, I think. And there's a water line in both directions, and we can't put any trees on that easement,
If it's
cyan
27
color.
inches, that is a major water
Yes.
line, so.
And then the other issue that I mentioned earlier is we have the lighting. We're having to go with the Spanish lighting, so we're having to use like a Barcelona kind of looking light. And those lights are not as efficient in spreading light everywhere, right? They're kind of, you know, we could eliminate it, but then it would be these LED functional, you know, stark modern lights, you know.
Thank you. So along the easement, the Caltrans easement, no trees. However, you do have, and I see you've removed a strawberry tree, the Arbutus unita, but you've retained the shrubbery. So that's
Yes.
stayed in a portion of the landscape. Why couldn't you extend that landscape across that easement? Because I believe, you know, we're not going to build in an easement, but landscaping certainly wouldn't be an issue.
We can landscape, we're going to landscape all through here, along the edge, all the way. And we're going to landscape, there's a walkway, so folks, when they get out of their parking, we have to provide safe pedestrian access away from drive lanes.
Yes.
So we've provided a path, and it's actually a decomposed granite path, because we cannot put concrete over the water line.
Okay, so I'm talking about this area up here. Right now in plan, it shows it's just paved.
Right.
Nothing there.
The reason is, currently Caltrans wants to be able, there's a gate, and Caltrans used to be able to access the channel from their right-of-way, meaning that they could drive off the ramp and come along their right-of-way down to the channel. But because of the interchange reconstruction, they built a pretty deep swale. It's probably about 4 feet deep and about 6-7 feet wide.
The bioswale.
And they cannot get in their property. So we're actually talking to them about granting them an easement through our property to get back to maintain the channel. I understand they haven't maintained the channel, but they have a project now to clean up the channel, reline the channel that should be coming in 2020, 2021. So they need access to the channel. So they want us to give them an easement through our property, along from Pico, coming in here and out, and have a gate here and go back into the channel. We're actually having a meeting with them next Friday in the field to go over that. But they actually told me in the meeting this week that they probably would like to work with the city and get access off of Pico and come down from Avenida Pico where the channel crosses and come in that way.
As an alternative.
As an alternative. If that's the case, and we can close that, we can add more landscaping.
So you could fill that in with
If
continuation.
we can work something out with Caltrans, we will do that.
Okay, great.
You got a very tight plan, lot here, a lot of easements and considerations.
Indeed.
I know you're trying to cram every tree you can get into it, but
It's just, it will be on
there are
site.
physical limitations we have to live with.
Okay, yeah.
I can always count on my tree person over here, every meeting.
We've won 2 awards because of landscaping. I use Bob McMahon, and Paul works for Bob McMahon, and he's an outstanding landscape architect. We really try to do a very nice job because, you know, landscaping really enhances a project.
Agreed. Okay, so on that note, let's shift up out of the easement Caltrans mess and go to the front of the property, the north elevation along Pico. There was an arbutus removed from that area as well as a dragon tree. Was it due to lighting issues, or was it just visibility to the brand?
There's a couple of issues there, and you've alluded to it regarding the site, and we've talked about that in the meetings. We want to keep well, I'm not going to tell you something that is not true. We would like to keep visibility to the signage clear. One of the issues we have is mobile. We cannot block mobile sign because they already have a monument sign here, so we cannot put any trees in front of their sign. We also have McDonald's sign here, so we want to be careful that we don't block their signage. And then we're proposing a sign ourselves. The other part of it too is from a traffic point of view, and I think if we could get a large enough tree that just had a trunk and it's big enough to where it's up high, where folks coming out of the site, because someone pointed out that we have during the school hours, the school let in and let out, we have a lot of young people walking on the sidewalk.
About 80 or 90 go by there every day,
Right.
Both ways.
So we want to keep it really clean, very visible for folks to be able to cross. The other challenge that we have is we're having South Coast Water District that has those two water lines is not letting us put any pipes across their easements to outlet our water into the Caltrans right away, even though our low point is in that position. So we're having to pump our drainage water back to the front where there's permeable soils, and we're infiltrating our stormwater up front. So this whole area up front will be infiltration basin to take care of our stormwater.
Has to be permeable?
Yes, sir, because we have good permeable soils up front. We have clay soils in the back, and they don't let us have any water go over the water line. They're really strict about that.
That's a water drainage line or just the actual sheeting?
They will allow us to sheet over their easement, but they won't allow us to put a pipe in the ground.
Okay, gotcha.
Without going to the state, getting some kinds of permits. They got really tough with me,
Understood.
turned it over to their attorney, and I said, okay, I'll infiltrate in the front.
That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. I'd also agree, the previous Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out, the one to go in there, were it's even in our staff report, approximately 4,000 square feet type installations there, and there was some very stacking problems and other city issues, particularly with In-N-Out. But, so you're down around 2,400 feet?
2,400, yes.
Which is considerably smaller footprint, which allows them now to have a building with more stacking for their drive-through. So you have a tough lot to deal with there. Any other question? The applicant has a lot of expertise here. His landscape person's here. We've got real estate people here. Do we have a dark skies lighting expert in the crowd here for Commissioner Ruin by any chance? Any other, do we need to avail ourselves of any of the staff that he's brought along, his expertise? Mr. Crandall.
Yeah, let's get back to the tower sign.
Okay.
You'd indicated now it's only going to be maybe 3 inches deep. Let's go back to the rendering. I think Lenny had it a minimum of 6 inches deep.
He had it a little bit deeper.
And I think
yes.
that's a really important character for that tower, having that recess.
Okay.
And I really think there's a way to light it, bringing it out to the surface where 3 inches, it's going to look like it's applied to the face.
Understood.
And we're losing that whole architectural character of the tower and that sign. That's one of the things that makes the tower work. And I would stress to come up with a solution where it can maintain that recess and still be lit. Even if the slope goes up, then it levels off for a short distance back to the sign, and then you can get, it doesn't have to slope all the way back to the sign on the sill.
Right, it can be.
It can go up and then
3
be
inches,
flat, the
right.
lighting can be
Yeah,
in there,
that's
so
a
it
good
can be
point.
done. And I would strongly suggest that character be maintained, because I think Henry Lenny made a good point that that's a big part of the character.
Good architecture.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
On the inside of the building, because we don't have any sections on these drawings, are the ceilings going to be vaulted high like the roof line?
Yes, they're vaulted.
So they're going to be high, that front window,
Currently,
north side, and then that little window on the top, that's all going to be light going inside of the building?
yes.
Okay.
So we will provide a vaulted. I believe that Starbucks architects, they're going to develop the interior and they're going to apply for a permit for the TI, basically. And over their bar area, they may have a drop because of the health department requirements. I'm not sure if anybody, Kimberly can discuss that in more detail. They will have to have a flat ceiling at a certain elevation. I'm not sure. Do you want to point that out?
You've come a long way. Please come forward and share your expertise with us.
Hello,
That made your trip worthwhile.
We're at the end of the world down here.
Thank you. My name's Kimberly Roski. I'm the design program manager with Starbucks. So per health code, we have to have a washable, scrubbable surface over the engine. Anywhere there's like food prep as far as drink preparation, it has to be a washable, scrubbable, typically a gypsum board surface. So that would come out to the front edge of the bar at the very least. So height is not so much a concern. It's more of the fact that you have to make sure that the entire engine's covered. The rest of the cafe, working with William and his team to work through the HVAC issues and how we're going to design that. But our intent, as we've been moving forward as a company and design, is to have more exposed ceilings, more height, that type of thing, and not just dropping in a standard like ACT ceiling tile.
So you think it's going to be open?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the intent.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think the Starbucks come and hang around type philosophy there to make it more encompassing there, I guess. Any other of the expertise we want to take advantage of since he's brought in this great distance at all? Mr. Blackwell, you can talk to the architect after the meeting's over. So, I mean, the landscape architect is here. Is there any other questions of staff? Thank you very much. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody in the public like to talk to this? That will close the public hearing and enter into discussion. Commissioner Crandall, you're...
Jumped right in there. One, I wanted to thank the applicant and his whole team. They were a delight to work with at the design review level, and they certainly picked the right guy to help them. I think this is the first job we've had Henry Linney actually work on rather than critique, so that was certainly a delight. We spent a lot of time, 3 meetings on this project, and it evolved greatly and is a huge improvement over what was first there. I do want to stress once more time, I think the tower character, that's the most visible thing we see. We don't want to sell it short, so let's do what we can and have staff work with them to get the most recess we can in that tower. I think there's going to be probably a lot of evolution on this once it gets to working drawings and all that staff's going to have to deal with. And I want to stress, pay close attention to the details specifically to make this thing work. Being a coffee specialty use, I think it's certainly more suited for this location than food where people are taking much longer to prepare the food. The stacking is going to be slower. So I think it's the best we've seen so far, and the findings that are here, I think, can be made. So at this point in the discussions, I'm currently in support of the project, unless something comes up. So, and one more time, thanks for working with us to improve the project.
Commissioner Wu.
I like this project. I think it's a very refined architecture design. Has a sophistication and it's pleasant to look at. And this location, being on a gateway of the city, is it's very important to get the old restaurant to be redeveloped. My only concern, or if I have to quote a concern, is the possibility that this signage facing the freeway, I recognize it's marginal, at the most. So it's not very visible. From northbound, one have to pass the overpass and turn the neck really hard to see it. On the southbound, if you sit on a SUV or truck, you can see it, especially during night time. That's why I call it a marginal case, to become a freeway-oriented. I know the city has a policy banning freeway-oriented sign. We have a monument sign on the street which serves the need for the motorists on Pico. So, facing toward the ocean direction, we have two signs, one higher up on the tower and another one down on the street level. So it seems like the second one at least will attract attention of some motorists on the freeway. So I'm not 100% sure that this will be accepted as a freeway visible instead of freeway oriented. I'm ready to accept the whole package as is, but I wonder if we can have the applicant to turn the light off during the nighttime, so it doesn't.
Really? That's what the lights are for. Okay, well, that's your input on the thing, is that right?
I think if we have a policy disallowing freeway-oriented, when we have a marginal case, we want to see better proof that it won't become one. This is a marginal case. The material, I see the material exhibit, they're not 100% clear.
I'd state also that the McDonald's next door is grandfathered with a freeway-oriented sign next door there. That when we went through that particular evolution about 2 or 3 years ago, and so it was out there and it's there today, and you can't see that sign either until you're committed to the off-ramp. In other words, if you haven't gone over onto the transition lane and already committed to McDonald's, you haven't seen the sign yet. So this is a freeway visible, but I couldn't anyway really buy it's freeway oriented. And with the light on, they're not gonna, if they don't know there's a Starbucks there, they're not gonna make the turnoff. They're gonna go to Vista Hermosa and loop all the way back around, or come back down Frontiera, and it's gonna be a long journey. It's just, I think it balances out the building, but that monument sign is next door there. That was a heated discussion, but it was grandfathered for many years. They didn't move it when they remodeled here back there about 2 or 3 years ago. You just can't see it. That's just a comment.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner,
I understand.
yeah.
I think that overall, maybe it's slightly, it's a slight concern, but I think that the benefit of overall package clearly outweighs that. So
Good.
I'm ready to support it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Smith. Hello.
I like the idea of turning the lights out at night. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. Actually, the first thing I thought about this design was it was suspicious to be a freeway-oriented sign. And I'm still leaning a little bit that way because it is tall, somewhat massive, and you may have gleaned while I was asking the questions about the high ceilings and the vaulted. Because if it wasn't going to be high ceilings and it was going to be low ceilings, then I was really going to be concerned that this building was bigger than it needed to be and it was trying to be a freeway sign. And with that, I'm really good with the project. I think it'll be very successful. I'm still worried about people turning into those lanes from Pico during the rushes in the morning to get their their coffee, because that's how you guys have gotten so popular. People really got to have their coffee every day. My nieces won't even get out of bed unless they have coffee right away. So I'm good with that. I would like to suggest that the lights in the upper tower are eliminated. You can put your logo up there, but no lights. I think putting lights up there and the idea at night that you could see that from the freeway is something I just don't want to risk, and I don't want to, whatever I do, I don't want to violate the hard work that we've done about freeway orientation and seeing signs from the freeway, and I'm leaning a little bit conservatively on that, but I think in the long run, I don't see the necessary reason to really have that illuminated. I'd like to see it recessed in there, as Commissioner Crandall said. I think the architecture of that. And then finally, working drawings aren't done on this project, but I'd like to give my 2 cents on the design. I think you've really struggled hard with coming up with Spanish colonial revival design, but you've missed it big in 2 areas, and that's the tower itself has pilasters on the, if you put the elevator right there, the tower has pilasters on the tower. That's just not right. And the round column on the corner window on the north elevation, that just isn't right. So you might want to take a look at working that out and making that a little bit more realistic to the true Spanish colonial revival design. Other than that, I think the design's really good, and I'm supportive of the project with the idea of eliminating the night lighting on the tower.
Okay, I'll chime in on the way going over to the right here. I think you've done a very good job with a very difficult property. And this whole area has been very sensitive for many years, and I'm glad to see there's a high-quality project come in to repurpose what was used to be there, and of course the owners in the back, I'm sure glad you've come in and done your best and on the Starbucks Corporation. I don't particularly have a problem with particularly the lighting when it's recessed and the downward visibility that they're trying to present here. I think it's fine, and where this thing sits down there in the valley, and particularly since we just raised the freeway up from the Pico dip now with a redesign, so you're higher to get rid of the famous transition there. We raised that freeway like 15 feet on the arc coming down that valley there, so that means that this building now is set further down than what used to be with the old exchange. So I think you've done a very good job, and when you look at the easements and everything else and everybody else's requirements you had to deal with, you've done a very fine job. And I'll take the counter of Commissioner Smith because on the pilaster and what he thinks you've missed, because that's Henry Leonard is considered one of the preeminent architects of the Spanish colonial revival, which this town has embraced since Oldie Hanson founded it. So, I think I think most of his design is very good, and you chose a very great architect to help you get through the process here, because he's highly regarded in this town. So I'm going to be supportive of your project, and I think you've done a lot of good work on it. And I know Commissioner Blackwell is anxiously waiting, and I'll defer to him.
Well, I do echo some of the comments regarding the architectural quality of this building. I think, and I know it's come a long way, and I think it's something that we're all going to be very proud of once it's built. There's some great details here that you may miss if you don't look closely that I think we'll appreciate over time more and more. Some of the elements that Commissioner Smith mentioned drew my attention in the beginning as well. The isolated column, the pilaster details on the tower, but I think it works. Those elements can be found and I've seen it in classic Spanish colonial designs. We've got examples in Santa Barbara that we could reference. But at minimum, maybe we just call those elements, whimsical. But it works. I think overall it adds character to the structure. There's diversity, and it meets the intent, the architectural intent. certainly by a renowned architect who really put a lot of time into this, so I really appreciate that. The signage, the locations of the sign, I think, as presented initially through the design review package, the emblem was recessed a little more than the current drawings show, and I agree with Commissioner Crandall that eliminating that degree of recess really detracts from the appeal of the tower. I think that the deeper recessing, the cove effect that's created with the downlight, the recessed, I think it's a can light shining down, was going to work. Changing that to a more shallow recess just stifles the intent, and I think it's going to really do damage to the overall package of this design. So I would not be in support of that, nor would I be in support of any sort of signage that on the tower, especially, that is oriented towards the freeway. We've got different perspectives on this, but I think on its face, it is facing the freeway. It's at a high point on a tower, so the intention seems pretty clear to me, and I couldn't support it for that reason. We have recent, we've done lots of work on this matter, and we've got new ordinance code section that prohibits it. In my opinion, this is exactly what we didn't want to see. So I would not support that portion of the design. And I would like clarification from legal on, the applicant stated that there's been a removal of some specimen trees at the frontage. And the reason for that removal was so that there would be no blockage of pre-existing legally non-conforming monument signs at adjacent properties. What's your take on that?
If the question is whether the removal was in violation of any kind of law or regulation, unless those trees were protected and they were on private property, then there would be nothing to prohibit them from removing those trees or any trees on their property. Again, if the trees were protected for some reason, then there's a problem there, but otherwise, it's their property. They can plant and remove anything that they'd like.
Okay, so the landscape plan had some new plant material, the specimen trees that I'm referencing. The applicant stated that the reason why those elements were removed from the landscape plan was to preserve a line of sight to the adjacent property owners' legal non-conforming monument signage. Signage is down low to the ground. And I want to know if there's any legal basis for that. Would there be a potential claim from the adjacent property owners that their monument sign is now not visible because Starbucks planted some trees in front of their property?
Unless they have some kind of an easement for visibility purposes, I can't see any claim at all. If they have, if they own the property and they can plant plants, so they could build a wall there and completely block visibility, again, absent some kind of easement, they can do that.
I would also like to comment that the McDonald's extensive remodel that happened about 3-4 years ago, we made them move that monument sign for safety and a line of sight purposes. Because where it was, as you left McDonald's to try to get back on Pico to make the right turn, that monument sign blocked the traffic coming around the curve. And so the sign that's there now for McDonald's been moved is now legal conforming. And the mobile sign's been there for many years, so I don't know quite where that stands, but we adjusted that monument sign with McDonald's deliberately for line of sight and safety purposes all up and down that section there because of the traffic orientation on that turn there.
Well, thank you for that clarification. That helps. And I'd like to ask the applicant a question, if you could approach the podium. If I can open this up.
We'll reopen it up, the
I'm sorry.
application
Thank you. I do appreciate that. Just to be clear, would the applicant be agreeable to a condition to landscape that area at the westerly portion of the parking lot that's being reserved now tentatively for access easement to Caltrans, should Caltrans decide to go with the alternative at a different property?
Yes, we will accept that condition, and I will take a quick opportunity to mention that the ownership of the mobile and the Carols are one and the same, and we're bound by contract with mobile not to block their sign.
Okay, thank you.
Also, the people that own this property also own
Yes,
the
sir.
mobile property, the people in the back of the room here? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with all, with these concerns and questions answered, I would support this project. I think it's beautiful. I think it's going to be a great addition to our city at the gateway, at a gateway. With the trees replaced at the frontage of the property, I think that adds balance to the landscape plan. We've got, a row of the arbutus trees along the eastern property line, and removing that same type of tree from other areas of the project creates an imbalance to the landscape sheet plan. And I appreciate the applicant's willingness to accept a condition to address the large concrete area that would be left there should landscaping not be added at the turnabout at the end of the property. I think that would soften up the plan quite a bit. And again, the freeway-oriented, freeway-facing portion of the tower, I'm not in support. Other than that, I will support the project.
Mr. Rulon, you've been waiting so patiently.
Thank you. Actually, quick question for the applicant. What is the Starbucks policy in terms of the main sign lighting at night? Do you turn that off after you close business? Is it illuminated all night?
I'm going to defer to Juliana. She's an expert in signage.
Good evening, Commissioners. Juliana Gofori with Starbucks Coffee. Typically, the sign stays illuminated all night, but during hours of operations, we can make arrangements to turn the illumination off.
You mean?
At night when it's...
At night, after
hours of
closing,
operating,
yes.
so that can be done. Okay, great, thank you. That was what I was wondering. Okay, let me say, first of all, I think it's a dirty trick hiring the architect who wrote our design guidelines. That's hard man to argue with. I do think the applicant has, by the way, has really stepped up, and, this is a hard site anyway. We all know that. This is the third time around.
No doubt about it.
Plus, once he discovered this was a gateway, he kind of went all in and, hired, Mr. Lenny. Last I heard, he doesn't work for free unless that's changed, but, so.
It's a charitable institution, I know.
Yeah, so I'm very appreciative of that. So I want you to know the city is appreciative of that kind of effort. We're really grateful. The kind of the gold standard, I think, in this kind of design that requires Spanish colonial revival architecture is if we can look at it and say, well, I think maybe in 50 years, this might be something that's so appreciated by the city, it becomes a historic structure. So, we'll never know, but, I tend to think that this could be, one of those. So as far as just the overall quality of the design, I think it's just outstanding. I do agree with my colleagues about the recess. I think it's an important part of the structure. Short of conditioning it in there, we may just want to communicate to City Council that we think that that's important, because if they look at this and it's not there, they could indicate
Or
it.
defer to the city community development director and the plan.
Yeah, well, no one suggested that we condition it. I'm not sure if we want to, or maybe we want to give them some flexibility, but we may want to, short of doing that, we may want to communicate that to City Council so it doesn't get dropped out. So, that we feel it's an important architectural, the deeper recess is an important architectural characteristic. Freeway visibility, I'm pretty much a stickler with that, but I'm pretty okay with that on this building in terms of the logo signage, the main logo on the top of the tower. Particularly if we condition this to say that the lighting is turned off when they're not in business hours. So it's not on all night, not illuminated all the time when they don't need it.
What is their hours of business at, I'm trying to remember from the staff report.
24 hours is
24
what's
hours.
proposed.
That's what I thought. I was asking Commissioner Crandall here, but I thought it was a 24-hour deal. But I
McDonald's is also 24 hours.
Pardon me?
McDonald's is also 24 hours.
Yeah.
All right.
Drive-through 24 hours.
Nice one. So, but regarding the signage, I do The thing I struggle with most is the monument sign. Our findings for monument signs are actually pretty strict. We say that there's something about the building, the site, the architecture that dictates the need for a monument sign. And I know the building is, we've got the setback a bit for the building, but it's still there. It's still pretty close to the road. However, I look at the architecture, and it is such beautiful architecture. I prefer not to clutter it with, drive-through signs. It kind of hurts, to kind of see that compromise like that. And my feeling is with a monument sign, it's actually warranted in this case if we don't have that drive-through information on the tower. Now, that may solve a couple of problems maybe with some of the people who have issues with, seeing something from the freeway. If we recommended that we remove the drive-through sign but keep the monument sign, then, I think we've got some nice visibility there. They still have the Starbucks logo, and, we've preserved some architecture there. And I think have enough to make a finding for the monument sign. So.
Well, I'm thinking if they have the monument sign with the letter drive-through, then on the tower, eliminate that logo, change it into a deep recessed window. That would be a better combination.
Okay, well, I still have a few more to go, but all I'm kind of putting out there is that maybe that's a way to get to a place that everybody is happy with. But that would be my consideration, because right now I really struggle with the finding for the monument sign itself. Not for nothing, but I think it might be worth mentioning, we don't see a lot of where we have, say, one vendor with a lot of stores in our town. This is a little different with Starbucks. It turns out, I was reading an article recently, for any Starbucks location, there's an average of 3.6 Starbucks within a mile. That's across the nation. And we're at about 4 right here once this is installed.
In the city?
In our city. No, not in the city. Within a mile of this location, there will be 4 other Starbucks. So slightly over the average, but, where are we going with that? I'm not really sure. I don't know that it's something for us to do, whether or not it's something for us to do, but I think it's interesting and worth mentioning, because for this type of store, they obviously are dominant. They're dominant on Pico, which is, kind of our main corridor there. So, because 3 of these locations, once this is built, will be on Pico. So, and one will be kind of just off of Pico in the mall, the outlet center. So I think it's sort of an interesting thing to know and to put into the mix. It's something to have in the hopper.
It's their corporate decision, I guess, really.
Yeah, I mean, they're a successful corporation, but what effect does that have on our community? It's a question. So I kind of feel like, I also feel like I would be happy with a small traffic review in 12 months, because, see how that pedestrian access is going across there. We do that in other locations where there might be issues. I think that, we don't really know what the traffic's going to be like once it's actually going, so taking a little look in a year and, just making sure everything's copacetic might be a useful thing to have in there as a condition. So I guess what I'm left with is I'd like to see that as a condition if the other members of the commission think that that's a good idea. And I'm curious how people feel about the monument sign if we remove the drive-through lettering on the tower and preserve more of the tower's architecture.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Crandall, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, like I said, when I first spoke, I would wait to listen to all the other commissioners before making a decision. I just want to go through a couple of things. Hours of operation, we're at 24, so if things are lit, they're lit. The sign depth would be something we can direct staff to incorporate, and probably doesn't need a condition of approval. But when we reviewed it at design review, it was actually an LED recessed, let's call it a strip of lighting around the whole sign, so it was just going to glow. You weren't going to get a hot spot particularly, and it was just going to wash this. So it's not going to be like a I don't even want to use the word neon.
Please don't.
Backlit sign. It's not going to look like what we traditionally see as a very commercial plastic sign. This is going to look relatively handmade, which our ordinance requires. This is one case, and this isn't the first building adjacent to the freeway. It's the second. And I find that the sign facing the down Pico certainly matches the, do you want to put the definition back up? If you really read the two definitions of the sign, this sign is not strictly, the primary purpose is to identify motorists on the freeway. You either passed it already and can't exit Pico, so you're not going to turn around and come back to it, so that sign doesn't do any good for people going north who aren't familiar with the building. And coming south, it's the same situation. So I find it really does meet the freeway visible sign, and it's just cursory, and it's actually a good architectural element. And I can still support, since if they can have the sign, typically they can have it lit. So it's one or the other. I think they can have the sign and have it lit. Another comment to staff would be to review the doors being moved at the rear over to the back of the building behind the trash enclosure where it's screened. Pedestrians are still going to, or people walking from the parking lot are still going to go by it either way. But if it's painted out the wall color, it should disappear. Let me confirm with staff, will the landscaping be re-reviewed when they finalize it by the city landscape architect?
Correct. One of the conditions of approval is for a landscape plan check, and condition 19 dictates city planner designee to have purview for the addition of more trees throughout the site.
Excellent, okay.
Mr. Murphy is highly regarded by this commission, so he's a
And then-
great asset to the city.
I could certainly support a condition of approval to require landscaping at the easement gates if, in fact, they don't require that easement. I think that's certainly a reasonable request.
If I may interject, there's also a condition of approval associated with easements.
It is.
And if there are no restrictions on additional landscaping on those easements, that we have the purview to add more landscaping.
That's correct.
And that, I think we would then leave to our the city's landscape architect to determine the amount and type. And with that, those items, I could support the project with those. It looks like one condition for the landscape. Well, it's already there. Landscaping's already been
I think
conditioned.
the only condition we're lacking right now is the traffic suggestion from Commissioner Ruin after a year.
That and monument sign, I just can't find enough information that says I shouldn't approve a monument sign. I don't think it's going to be a distraction to the building, and we certainly allow it on most other projects.
The two next door.
Two next door particularly, and, first in, we just had that conversation, are you going to make it so somebody else can't have something if somebody else comes in first? So I could support that. So those are my comments, and if we do that, I can certainly support the project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, you coming around again?
Yeah, I'd like to have the applicant again. As you can surely tell, there's concern about the, I would say, the west elevation of the tower of the sign being lit. Would you be okay to not light that?
I don't think, I would not. I'll be honest with you, I think there's a balance because the way that Henry designed the building, there's a symmetry even though it's around the corner. And the tower looks the same facing north as it faces west. On the other, the roof hides the other parts of the tower. So I think architecturally it looks...
I'm just saying not light the west side, you could light the north side.
I think it would look unappealing if it was unlit.
You understand our concerns, though.
I
Or your
believe...
concern, anyway.
I believe that based on the photographs that we've shown, that it's really difficult. If somebody is looking at the building as they're driving 65 miles an hour on that route, they're not doing their job driving, and they're probably causing an accident. I think, again, it may be visible by passengers, but, you know, it's hidden behind trees, it's behind the mobile gas station, it's kind of far away, and I think it's consistent, the architecture that has been done, the same look on the north and the west, I think it looks appealing.
Okay. I guess Commissioner Blackwell, you're
Yes, just one.
back for a third bite of the apple here.
I'm hungry. Okay, so we left out one part of my discussion, and I'd like to know what the commission's thoughts are replacing the trees at the frontage when there was no real basis, no legal basis relative to the blockage of the neighboring signs. The applicant had stated that they believe that there would be some sort of a, I don't know, a legality involved.
Well, I think they have a letter of agreement between the mobile station right now not to block the signs, even though the property owner's in the room and owns both properties. I think there's some conditions there that exist between mobile on some of the blockage there.
We have McDonald's as well.
I'm kind of looking at, given the monument sign myself, that there's just a line of sight safety issue there that we don't want too much blockage up there from as you come around that curve anyway, the way the road's curved there. You don't see it there in the rendering of the drawings, but I know that we had to do a big change for McDonald's because of the curvature there.
Well, that tree wouldn't create a blockage. It won't get big enough. And there's already trees in the right-of-way that would keep that from happening anyway. There's existing trees there. The trees that we're talking about stay pretty small. These are small to medium trees, but they are part of the palette, and they're significant. They're unique. They've got, you know, a certain coloration of the trunk. The palette was balanced until the removal of those trees. And there's no, you know, if the applicant's intent was to free up the visibility to the brand only, there's two discussions happening here.
I think some of the problem was the permeability for the drainage too. Isn't that correct? Please come forward. I think there were some other issues in the front there, right?
Right, so we've had to create the front landscaped area, there are infiltration basins. So trees won't do really well in there. But we do have a couple of trees up front.
You have lots of landscape that rule wouldn't apply. Are you going to take all the landscape out?
Do you have the drawing? Here, so I don't think, okay, here we go. Right now, this area here, and this area here is all infiltration. For bringing the water from a tank under the parking lot here, we're gonna have to pump it up a line and drip it out in there. Right now, we do have a large tree here, and we have a palm tree here, and then we have palm trees here. And then we have a large tree here.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can get behind that statement about the filtration. I just don't. I have enough knowledge to know that I just don't think that would be an impact.
If staff could interject for one moment. So the approved WQMP, conceptual WQMP for this site doesn't have the infiltration at the front of the site. It's located in the rear. So that's what's been approved tentatively by the city's engineering division, and that's located on your grading plans as part of your package.
So it's not in the area of the trees that are going to be removed?
Currently, what's been reviewed by staff is not located at the front.
Okay. And just for the commission to consider that we're talking about a monument sign, some of the commission has expressed concern about that. We've got tower signage, north and west side. We've got the brand on the north face. So we've got plenty of visibility to the brand. I just don't think there'd be any, the more landscape we have and the more balanced it is, the softer it's going to look. It's not going to detract.
When do we start shielding, though, the design itself, you know, which is Henry Linney's design?
I understand.
When you block that from the street?
Yeah, I
there's a balance there that we have to.
Agreed. I don't think that it would create a balance. There's enough opening, there's enough space in between the elements that I don't believe there'd be a blockage there. But it's something to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Something to consider.
Mr. Ruin?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of support for having the monument sign without the drive-through items on it. I think that's, it's a shame. I hope you all reconsider. I think some of the other things that have been mentioned about it, the fact that neighbors have monument signs isn't a finding that we have or anything like that. So, it's about, is it necessary there? But sort of bifurcating it, which I don't want to go through, that administrative stuff. I'm going to support the project because it's a wonderful, wonderful project overall. And hopefully people, before we vote, will change their minds about the drive-through portions of the what's on the tower.
Okay, Commissioner Wu.
In response to Commissioner Blackwell's comment about the tree, I believe that the applicant is trying to be a good neighbor with the mobile. And they also rely on mobile's cooperation for the lot adjustment. So the issue in front of us is, should that be a good enough reason for the city to accept that they remove those trees? Because the staff is currently reviewing a different set of drawing, and the applicant is proposed to move that infiltration basin to the front of the street, which will result in loss of some trees. I would say, assuming that the basin is still on the backside, you would have some trees. So if they want to relocate that basin, the overall amount of trees, they should not be less than what they have before. So, and that's my thought on that. And also, the street tree is much more important than trees in the backside. So it is important to try to protect the number of trees on the street front. Regarding the signs, I believe that the west elevation, we have two signs, one on the tower and one on the monument sign. Both have the logo, both have the letter drive-through. They're a little duplicated, they're too much. If we look at the architectural elevations, they look very very good. When you add those letters, they're a little foreign there. So I wonder if we can remove the drive-through letters from the tower, or remove the logo altogether. Either way, but I think some reduction needs to be done, or we limit the lighting. Some reduction needs to be done on the west elevation, considering that we have two signs on it.
I guess my comment was I looked overall to this project compared to McDonald's, and this is a fairly reduced sign package overall. You've got two signs on the tower with drive-through and one monument sign, and the rest of it's just, informational signs that get you to the drive-through window and to the menu. So the whole sign package from a branding standpoint is three signs, right? Two on the monument, two on the tower, and one monument sign. Is that what we're talking about here? Four? Where's the logo? Well, there's two logos, right?
Logos, two drive-throughs.
Right. Well, yeah. And well, basically two branding on the tower and two on each side of the monument sign, and that's it. That's all we're talking about for the tower. Everything else is directional on the property. This is compared to what I recall from the property next door, this is a very modest sign package overall. So that's my comment. Commissioner Crandall.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't been slapped on the wrist yet by our city attorney. We're talking taking content off the sign. I keep saying drive-through, that's content. And we can say we don't want that much sign up there, but I don't think we can say what text has to be there and what text can't be there. Would that be a correct assessment, Mel? And we can say the size or whatnot, but
we should be cautious when talking about the precise content. We should talk about the size, the dimensions, et cetera, when it comes to signage. Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay. And For the trees out front, I certainly have the same concern. Could we handle that, though, with, once the drainage is done, that we give direction to the city landscape architect? We would like to see more trees if possible, and if he concurred, and would that be an acceptable condition of approval?
To interject briefly, you're saying that engineering thought that this particular bifurcation field is in the back of the property versus on the front? We have a conflict here, or what?
So what's been proposed and reviewed by the development management team during that review is what's shown on your grading plans in the attached plans, which shows that modular wetland in the rear of the lot. Prior to hearing, after the last design review subcommittee meeting, the applicant proposed a complete change in their bioswale unit. Engineering staff informed them that a revised WQMP would need to be provided and would have to undergo review again in order to be supported by the engineering staff to get to public hearing. It's something, the applicant then said that they would continue forward with what's proposed. The possibility to change the bioswale would be something we'd have to discuss with engineering. And
So this was driven by the applicant, huh?
The South Coast Water District easement. They don't allow me to infiltrate in their property.
the applicant hasn't obtained approval letters from all easement holders as of yet.
Has not.
Correct, has not.
Okay, so why don't we condition this going forward, like, if they put this in writing to the applicant, do they put this condition in writing to you, or is this just verbal?
So South Coast Water District denied the authorization to go over their easement with any kind of infiltration. So we came up with an alternative to go back and pump.
They've done this in writing?
They've done this in writing,
Okay.
through numerous emails. And they've now, I've had to come up with a new design, and the design works. We're going to submit a new WQMP. It's got to be reviewed by Zach and his folks, but we're going to work through that and get that revised and to eliminate the problem with the South Coast Water District.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackwell.
So I just want to add a final note. The applicant stated that they believe that the north face or the west facing tower signage would not be visible from the freeway. So obviously we're looking at the Pico corridor there, and so the intent then would be to make it visible to travelers on Pico. Well, we've already got a monument sign to serve that purpose. So we've got two serving the same thing. Is it necessary? Do we really need both? Wanted to put that out there for you. I don't believe so.
The only comment I have on that is you could probably see the tower sign from the underpass. You're not going to see the monument sign. If a car is in front of you as you're going up that right lane, you won't see the monument sign. So I think they've got both options covered, but each person can have their own thing on that. You got another comment? Okay.
Okay, last comment, Mr. Smith.
Well, I'm going to support also with Commissioner Blackwell. I had to say there's a monument sign in the front of the property that's lit, logo, drive-through. Quite honestly, I drive that area all the time, and I don't think you're going to be able to see the sign up on the tower down below. I think the side angles are wrong. I think, however, you are going to see them from the freeway, and I think that the fact that you're reluctant to turn the lights off for that implies to me that you're looking at the possibility of freeway signage out of that. And I just can't go with that. So I think, we have to realize that I think there's over signage, and I think that there's an issue of signage that could be freeway oriented. And so that really bothers me. And I think that you have plenty of signs, especially in the front, so I have a problem with that.
Okay, let's important? Okay, please.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, well, very good. Let's do that.
So I'd like to make a motion based on the condition that we have the night light on the west tower to be turned off. Any other condition?
You want a straw vote on that?
We can have a straw vote on
He wants to condition it that the west-facing sign be turned off, I guess. Is that correct?
it. To be turned off during nighttime.
Then you wouldn't need lighting then. Unless you need it in the fog during the day, I guess.
I mean, the sign will be not lit. They can still put the sign there.
Well, I understand, but if you were to put the sign there but not have it lit at night, you don't even need to put the lighting up there. Is that what you're implying?
No lighting.
I personally, don't think I could support that, but let's see what.
Yeah, you know about me and lighting, but I would say if they're open, they need some kind of lighting, they need some kind of illumination to alert that they're open. You know, I would prefer maybe they're not open all night and we could turn that off, but if they're open, you know,
You got to tell people you're open.
yeah, it's a notification for them being open, so.
They have,
The monument's on the street.
they have a north elevation and they have a monument. They're on.
Okay, let's,
The purpose is to avoid getting too close to be considered by some of the community members or city council to be a freeway-oriented sign. I think
I
it's
see what
better
you're
to
saying,
stay clear from that because we are approaching, we're on the margin of.
Did we have a straw vote on that?
I'm sorry?
no, you were contemplating, you had your light on as I was contemplating your contemplation.
I'm thinking about the right thing to do is, that's all.
You know, I personally can't support it turning it out. I think it's a very modest sign package, and they'd have the right to tell people that they're open if they're open 24/7. And I think the McDonald's next door has that. Of course, I think that gas station does too. I think they're open 24/7. So
Is that the straw vote?
I'm contemplating. Mr. Crandall, you have your light on for something?
I'm not prone to voting because I'm worried about what city council's going to say. I want to do the right thing for the applicant. And the moment I make the decision that it's a freeway visible sign, day or night,
Then it goes away.
it can have the light, and if you make the decision that it's a freeway-oriented sign, then you can't, I mean, it's either or. It's not kind of both. So we need to make a decision. Mine is it's freeway visible, and it can be lit.
I agree.
Yeah, for me, it's freeway visible. I mean, you know, I'd like to remove sign B1 and B2 for the reasons I've already stated, but in terms of freeway visibility, I think it's acceptable, yeah.
Sure. Madam?
Chairman, I'd just like to make a point of clarification. This isn't a recommendation to the city council. This is a planning commission decision tonight,
That's correct.
unless it's appealed.
Unless it's subject to call-up. I think we should, I don't think we need a straw vote. I think we have support where we're going. I would entertain a motion. I think the applicant's got a very balanced design here and has come a long way in a very difficult location. And let the votes fall where they may.
Okay, well, let's do a motion then. I move that we approve site plan permit 17348, conditional use permit 17349, architectural permit 17350, and discretionary sign permit 17413, Pico Starbucks, the resolution, and with some conditions. Let's see, we had raise your hand if you remember the conditions. Sign lighting, I'm going to...
There's nothing on sign lighting
For
because
this
it's-
proposal, nothing there. We found that the landscaping will be reviewed by landscape architect, and that's already in the conditions of approval.
Traffic in the year.
Traffic review in 12
Traffic
months.
review, absolutely, and that staff.
Including the pedestrian route there. So.
Review the location of the doors at the rear to make sure they're appropriate, and painted out building color.
The recess?
Oh, and the errata sheet, but we're not supposed to use the word errata, that we received at the desk, changing
Condition number 2. I think.
condition number 2 and B2 of the staff report is not part of the resolution, so just item 2 where they scrapped prior to the issuance of any permits, and it's 30 days after project approval. Then the third line, they put of approval, and I'll give this to the recording secretary. Do you have a copy of this? Okay.
And we're eliminating the reference to the Rancho San Clemente specific plans. in some
Which
other
is
areas.
in staff report rather than the resolution? That's a finding. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Crandall. Is that
Yes.
all of it?
Forget the recess.
I had left that up to staff to incorporate rather than a resolution, but we could make it a resolution if we choose.
Make sure it's consistent.
Okay, let's add a resolution that the architectural recess for the signage on the tower be recessed as shown to design review and lit in the same manner.
Okay, motion by Crandall, second by Rulon. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Good luck, and thank you for a very nice project. And if you don't understand, freeway-oriented signs are very sensitive in this town.
I've heard the challenges you guys are facing.
Okay, getting on, there is no new business, there is no old business, tentative future agenda.
New business, I have one item.
Oh, a new business, we have a new business, one item?
Cecilia, at some point, would it be possible to have all the new staff introduced and their positions explained or
Of course.
identified?
Yes, we will do that.
Okay.
We'll plan that for an upcoming
some
planning
point.
commission hearing. Yes, thank you.
Tentative future agenda, let's see, next week, council's going to have a special meeting on next Wednesday.
10th, yeah.
To hear the STLU issue they could not hear last night. And we will also have a traffic safety task force meeting. It was originally hosted that night, and it'll be here along with council coming in before us to try to get through STLU in some modicum of time, and the traffic task force to follow that. We have the joint meeting with council and all commissions, I think, coming up here in another week also. Has everybody indicated to the city clerk your attendance and all that stuff as requested? So,
All committees.
yeah, it's on the 10th, I believe, right? In fact, that's part of our adjournment tonight. And then subsequently, there's 2 adjournments we have to go through tonight.
Was there a response required?
Yes, you were supposed to reply to the city clerk to your attendance.
I think I did.
Commissioner Rulon.
Yeah, 2 things. One, Mal, I just want to make sure of something. Can I talk a little bit about some information regarding the STLU item we talked about 2 weeks ago that I recused from? No, because it might. Okay, that's fine. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was just an observation that I was making, or an insight that I had. When I joined the commission, there were, many commission members who'd been on for 10, 15 years. Staff had been here for a long time, was pretty stable. I think our main planner had been here for 20 years. So I was very fortunate that I had a lot of, that to help me come up, and I could depend on staff a lot. And, we've got a very capable and competent staff, but obviously we've had a lot of turnover, recently. And I think while I've been leaning on staff a lot over the years, I think that maybe we should kind of just be aware that staff may need to lean on us for some things. Not that they're plenty professional, they know their jobs, but in terms of, why things are done in the city or the fact that they are done, our history of, our thinking of when we were doing the general plan, the kinds of things that they just, didn't have access to when they did that. So it's just an observation that I had about sort of maybe a different sort of paradigm for the relationship between the planning commission and the planning staff. Now just, these things happen, time goes on.
Collaborate to graduate here.
Yeah, so just something probably we should keep in mind that we should be, helping and mentoring them just like they help and mentor, us, as well, and kind of expect that there's, we should be there for them to lean on a little bit, just like they're there for us as well.
Feel free, pass
that's
the
all.
word, Cecilia, if you'd like. Okay, but that's, if there's nothing else, I've got it ready to read. I'll read it, in fact. We'll adjourn to the joint council commissions committee meeting will be held at Thursday, May 10th at 7 p.m. at the Ole Hanson Beach Club, located at 105 West Avenue, Pico, San Clemente, California, followed by the next adjourned regular planning session meeting will be held at 6 o'clock on May 16th, 2018, in City Council chambers at City Hall, located at 100 Avenue de Presidio, San Clemente, California, as a study session has been canceled. That's a motion to adjourn to those two next meetings. If I have a second? Second by Blackwell. All in favor? Aye. Passes, all opposed? No. Passes 6-0. Thank you.